Hey everybody, good morning. We got an awesome guest on today, Crystal Conkle, who's Chief Marketing Officer of the 20 MSP, a juggernaut in our industry. Crystal, thanks so much for joining us today. Maybe you could get right into it here. Let people know who you are, because my audience, a lot of them are coming from being, we'll call it traditional copier dealers, and they've moved up into becoming managed service providers. And I see you guys coming at it from more of an IT services side. So I just think you guys have such an awesome value proposition. Maybe you could talk to what you do and what your company's doing.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Rick. So I lead marketing for a two-branch business. We are both the player and the playbook. So on one side, we operate a large national MSP, the 20 MSP. And then on the other side, we run a high-performance growth platform for MSP owners who want to scale faster and increase enterprise value. So my role sits across both, elevating brand, building demand, making sure that our marketing drives measurable growth across the entire ecosystem, which means I'm responsible for visibility, perception, pipeline, ultimately enterprise value. I don't view marketing as making things pretty. I view it as building trust at scale and lowering the cost of acquisition across every channel.
So I know there's no pressure in that role there based on what you just walked through, but hey, if we walk back a little bit, I know you've been recognized by CRN, you've been recognized, Woman of the Year in the channel for 6 years running now. I mean, clearly you're doing something right. How did you get into this? How did you get into the role you're in right now, if I may ask?
So I actually started my career inside very large corporations like HP and Accor, and that was great because it taught me structure, scale, and how real marketing functions inside complex organizations. But eventually I wanted something more entrepreneurial, so I left and I built my own marketing company, which I later sold. And then somewhere in the middle of my journey, I became Tim, who's now my husband, his first marketing hire for his MSP, which we've now rebranded to the 20 MSP. Years ago, it was Roland Technology Group. So I was his first marketing hire before he really believed in marketing or knew what to do with it. And that was right around the time that he was brainstorming what the 20 would be, the growth platform side of the business. So after selling my company, going through my own evolution, I came back to the 20 about 7 years ago. Not just as a marketer at that time, but with clarity, with confidence, with conviction, needed to help build the 20 into the powerhouse brand that it is today. And so I wasn't hired because the 20 existed. I was around when it was still just this whiteboard sketch.
Yeah, no, and I think that's why I was looking forward to talking to you. I mean, we called this unstoppable MSP marketing because I think candidly, a lot of MSPs, I don't know if they really understand the value of marketing and how it really connects to sales. And traditionally, we've invested in a sales engine, but maybe not really understood the top of the pipeline and all the great things marketing can do. I was looking at one of your posts recently, and by the way, if you don't follow Crystal on LinkedIn, you should, and buckle up. She's all over the place and doing all kinds of great things marketing wise. Moving forward, we'll talk about because I want to get your insights. If I'm an MSP today, what's working through your lens and what they should be thinking about, for the year ahead in 2026. But you recently did a post that I thought was really clever. You said, marketing's job used to be brand, now it's belief. And I was just wondering if you could explain that because I think you've got a really good point there.
Sure. So when I said that, when I said marketing's job is belief, what I meant by that was the old way of marketing doesn't work anymore. You can't just show up at a trade show, send a newsletter, run one Google ad, and expect leads to fall out of the sky. That's channel management, not marketing. And so modern marketing is about shaping belief, getting your market to believe that you're the smartest, the safest, the most aligned choice that they could make. Because MSPs deal in trust. If a business doesn't believe that you can keep them running, that you can protect their data, that you can guide their strategy, then they're not calling you back. And no campaign can fix a lack of belief. And so for MSPs, belief looks like clear positioning, a strong point of view, consistent visibility, social proof, and a brand that actually feels credible. Because when people believe that you are the real deal, then the leads follow. And if you don't, there's no amount of posting or advertising that's going to get you there. So what I'm really saying is that if you win belief, you win demand, and if you lose belief, you lose the deal.
I haven't heard people talk that way, and that's why I thought it was a really cool post you had. we talk to our clients a lot about social proof. Like, everybody says they're good at this, but how do you kind of back it up? And I see so many things in the marketing mix that lack that validation kind of thing. We talk about brand, like a lot of MSPs. I don't think, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but they don't maybe recognize the value of having a good brand and all that goes with it. And then underneath that, what I find, Crystal, is a lot of people that work in MSPs, I think they miss understanding the value of a person having a brand within the company. So obviously you're the marketing leader and your brand, I think, is awesome. But I think a lot of MSPs, they hide under the company brand and they don't really build the individual's brand within it. Maybe you could speak to a little bit what you think anyway on the importance of people building their own brand under the company's kind of umbrella.
Absolutely. So personal brand matters because people trust humans more than they trust companies, especially in B2B. And so when your face, your voice, your point of view are visible, then everything in your business moves faster. Deals are going to close faster because prospects already feel like they know you. You attract more talent to your organization because they show up for leaders, or they're attracted to leaders who show up consistently and transparently. Partnerships happen easier because people reach out to you when they recognize you. Pricing resistance drops because credibility creates that perceived value. And so your personal brand is about building trust before that first sales conversation even happens. So if you're not known, then you're negotiating. If you are known, then you're chosen. And so a strong personal brand does three things, I think, for MSP owners. Number one, it builds trust at scale. You're in more rooms than your feet could ever physically be in. It differentiates you instantly. 10 MSPs might offer the exact same services, but no one can replicate you. And then number three, it accelerates growth. So the market's crowded and visibility is oxygen. And so a lot of people think personal branding is vanity, but it's not. It's strategy and it is the modern referral engine. And so, especially in our industry, in the MSP industry, which is built on trust, I think that the leader who shows up wins more than a leader who stays invisible.
I really am enjoying the way you think. You made a comment there about you're in more rooms than your feet. And when COVID hit, we got hit with a lot of MSPs and their sales forces saying, what do I do? I can't operate through my traditional model. And we talked a lot about, building brand on LinkedIn, for example. And anyway, I just think your comment there about being in more rooms than your feet are in, I think is drastically underestimated. Um, as you get the MSP model, clearly you're seeing, a North American or potentially, global scope with what you're doing. What do you think if you had to kind of put it out there, something that MSPs are missing when it comes to the importance or marketing in general?
I would probably go with frequency. I think that a lot of them view marketing as a project, but it's not as a practice. So maybe they post once a month, they attend one event, they send one email, and then they wonder where all the leads are. And this market, like most others, or all others, rewards consistency, rewards clarity and courage, not what I call random acts of marketing. Marketing is all about the long game. I think another thing they view it as an expense, but it's an investment. And not always, financially, but with time, you have to take the time to build out something that is scalable and repeatable.
Your comment about, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here, obviously, as you know, and I think a lot of times the MSPs that we work with, they're like, thinking, okay, what's the ROI on this type of marketing move or campaign or commitment? And, do you have kind of, because you are an MSP, obviously, and do you have ways that you measure effectiveness of your marketing? Because, in my mind, it's sometimes difficult to measure right back to revenue. I mean, you can, but how do you measure basically marketing effectiveness?
So when I think about marketing effectiveness, I look at it in three layers. So number one, brand metrics. So that's awareness, trust, share of voice, and that tells you are people seeing you, are they remembering you, are they believing you? Number two, pipeline metrics. So MQL to SQL to opportunity progression. And that shows how well your marketing is qualifying and warming up prospects, moving them down the pipeline before they ever talk to sales. Number three, revenue metrics. So obviously CAC, customer acquisition costs, payback period, lifetime value of a client, and close rate. And that tells you if your marketing is actually improving sales velocity and profitability. And so I think with it, if it doesn't ladder up to revenue, then it's not marketing, it's decoration. And so an example of how that would play out for an MSP, let's say that you post consistently on LinkedIn, you clean up your web messaging, you share a few client success stories. So brand metrics are going to improve first. More people are going to recognize your name, more people are going to follow you. Your content starts getting shared. And then a few weeks later, you're going to start seeing pipeline metrics. Instead of cold leads, you're going to get warmer inbound. People who are saying, I've been following you for a while. I've seen your posts. We like the way you think. And so those leads are going to move through the steps faster because that belief that I talked about earlier is
Mm.
already built. And then from there, most importantly, revenue metrics are going to improve. So your close rate goes up, your sales cycle shortens, your CAC drops because your marketing did the heavy lifting before sales even got involved. And so all three of those layers work together, and I think that they're equally important to measure.
Yeah, no, for sure. So one of the questions we get a lot when it comes to marketing effectiveness is, what type of content should we be creating if I'm an MSP that would interest or attract, today's MSP buyer? And I don't know, amidst the plethora of stuff I'm sure you guys do or we're doing with our clients, we have A's, B's, and C's kind of thing. But what do you see out there as catching the most fish in terms of interest or demand generation?
I would say anything that speaks to outcomes, not activities. So, talking less about tickets, about tools, about tech, and talk more about business risk, financial impact, growth enablement. Because decision makers are buying peace of mind, they're buying protection, progress. They're not buying patching and passwords.
It's funny you say that because in our sales coaching side of our business, we talk a lot about, people they don't buy the shovel, they buy the hole. And I think it's so true. A lot of them are talking feeds and speeds conceptually and not necessarily the outcomes. Um, what have you seen like the most effective when it comes to marketing? Is there one kind of campaign or a series or a sequence of things that you've found these seem to be working really well through the activities you're doing that others could say, hey, maybe I should try that myself?
I would say when an MSP stops selling IT services and starts selling business resilience guarantees backed with proof, not promises. And so shifting that entire conversation from here's our stack, here's our tools, here's how many tickets we close to here's how we keep your business running. We keep it protected, we keep it profitable no matter what. And so when you change that positioning, it does three things immediately. It reframes value. So you're no longer competing with every other MSP in town. You're competing in your own category. Not only that, but it elevates the conversation. So you stop talking to gatekeepers and you start talking to CEOs who care about risk, about continuity, about revenue protection. And it makes your marketing more magnetic. So when you talk about outcomes instead of activities, buyers lean in. And you don't just say it, you back it with evidence. So, like you talked about earlier, social proof. So, case studies, guarantees, metrics, client results, documented processes. Because most MSPs still market like this menu of services. And
Hmm.
so, I think the ones who win the market are strategic business partner. And positioning is so important. It's the fastest way to really transform your marketing without spending any more money.
Yes, I was at an MSP last week, Salesforce size about 75 sales reps, and three times before the session started, I asked the CEO, what do you hope we accomplish, in the time I have with your people? He told me three times, Rick, I need our people to start having business conversations, not necessarily just techie conversations. And I thought, I'm sure you would agree that the elite performers know when to go to tech, but they can shift gears quickly to have the business. I thought really clever what you said there. so in each MSP, as you know, you've got a sales team, you've got a marketing team, and sometimes, they don't always align very well. And I'm just wondering, your thoughts on the importance of sales and marketing alignment, and if you've seen kind of something that clicks well. Because for most MSPs, when we walk in, marketing is doing this thing and sales is doing that thing, and they're not really in sync with one another when the power comes from the combination.
right? The age-old problem. I would say sales and marketing alignment
Yeah.
is one of the most underrated drivers of growth in an MSP or really in any business. If you don't have your sales and marketing teams share the same definitions, the same dashboards, the same destination, ultimately, then you don't have alignment. You have finger pointing, and that's an endless cycle, and it's expensive.
Mm.
So I would say alignment really comes down to a few things. Number one, having the same target. Marketing should know exactly who sales wants to talk to, industries, deal size, geographies, pain points. Because if you have both teams aiming at different bullseyes, then nobody wins. And then number two, I would say speak the same language. Um, so if marketing is talking about efficiency and tickets, but sales is talking to CEOs about risk and revenue protection, then that disconnect is going to show up really fast in your pipeline. So the story has to be consistent from the very first impression to the close. Speaking the same language, so important. Also having the same scorecard. Marketing can't celebrate vanity metrics while sales is struggling to close. So both teams should be looking at pipeline progression, the same conversion rates, and the same revenue goals. And so when that alignment is tight, I think what happens is leads become warmer. Your sales cycles are going to shorten. Your customer acquisition cost drops. Your close rates improve. And no one's wasting time on the wrong prospects. And that way you've got the whole company rowing in the same direction. And then, the opposite, when you don't have that alignment, then everything's loose, even if both teams are working really hard. So alignment is critical. It's a growth multiplier.
Yeah, and you said it's so true at the beginning of your comment there, the age-old problem. And the reality is we're in a new age and we can't use legacy kind of concepts to, I don't think, achieve what we want to. If some of the MSPs that we work with, I think wonder if an investment, which you call it in marketing, is going to drive any value in the eyes of, people that do M&A. And so through your experiences, like if you're an MSP owner right now and you're thinking of whether it's do a new website or beef up your digital DNA in some way from a marketing perspective, are you seeing that tie back into kind of the valuation of the business?
So digital presence, all of that, it absolutely impacts valuation, but I want to be really clear because our model at the 20 is different. So when the 20 acquires an MSP, the brand isn't the asset, because everything is unified under one national brand. So the logo, the website, the colors, none of that influences whether we buy an MSP or not. But what I think a lot of MSP owners miss is that your digital presence impacts your valuation because it drives growth before acquisition. It's critical. You are not going to grow without marketing. You might start your MSP, get a few referrals, and then you're going to plateau. You have to market. And a strong digital presence is extremely important because it helps you to win more deals, to close bigger clients, reduce churn, improve pricing power, build recurring revenue consistently, strengthen your positioning, and create predictable pipeline. And so all of those things are going to increase what you're worth to the buyer. So even though the 20 doesn't acquire your brand, your digital presence still matters because it influences the metrics that drive valuation. You're going to drive EBITDA, revenue quality, client concentration, growth rate, stickiness, um, average number of endpoints, scalability. And so, in other words, if it's not your website that we're valuing, it's what your website helps you accomplish. And your digital DNA is going to set the trajectory of your business long before the acquisition ever happens. And trajectory is what buyers pay for.
Absolutely. When this show airs, as you speak about these different things in marketing, a lot of MSPs will be in the planning cycle, we'll call it for 2026. And, again, given your, by the way, I really am enjoying listening to you. I'll say this, I think I'm so impressed with the way you think about things because I don't think enough people think that way. And if more did, I think they'd understand better what marketing can accomplish for their business. If I'm an MSP and I'm planning for 2026, okay, and I've got Crystal Conkle kind of, driving my marketing, what would be the things that you'd prioritize kind of going into 2026? Again, if you're a typical MSP.
So the top things that I would prioritize for MSPs would be thought leadership versus generic marketing, like we talked about.
Could I ask you what thought leadership is? And I asked, we were on a call this week and we got a really good question from a CEO of an MSP. He said, what is thought leadership? Sorry to interrupt you, but could you define what that is? Because I think some people they're confused on what that really means.
So thought leadership, like we talked about building personal brand earlier, putting yourself out there and becoming known as an expert at the things that you are good at and that you know well. So, that could be cybersecurity or AI, becoming a thought leader. So putting out content, whether that's on social platforms, articles in different publications, video content, all of those things are going to position you as a thought leader so that you are top of mind when prospects are ready to make that decision. They're going to immediately think, oh, wait, Rick, he's a marketing expert.
Mhm.
Go to, I'm looking for a marketing firm. So for MSPs, that thought leadership piece is extremely important because so much of the marketing looks exactly the same for MSPs.
I agree. It's almost like they're all coming at the same, factory. Um, so sorry, I interrupted you. So if you were to prioritize stuff, so thought leadership, couldn't agree more. What else, if Crystal Conkle's driving my marketing, what else would you prioritize for 2026?
So next, and this would probably be my number one thing, but would be AI visibility and searchability. So thinking about ChatGPT, Perplexity, not just Google. Search is shifting. We all know that. We are all going to ChatGPT and other, like Claude or Perplexity and searching there. So it's extremely important to be visible there so that you are positioned as a recommendation when clients or potential clients are searching, hey, I'm looking for an MSP in this area. Give me some options. Tell me why I should go with each of them. And so to be visible there, extremely important. And the thought leadership piece that I talked about are earned media, things like this, like podcast, getting those out there, that's going to help build that credibility that the LLMs are using to serve up their results. Another thing I would say is category positioning. So define your lane or die in the comparison pool. But the MSPs who went in 2026, are not the most technical. They'll be the most trusted, the most visible, and the most differentiated.
Trusted, visible, and differentiated. I think a lot of people, a lot of MSPs think they're trusted or think they're visible or think they're different. And we run an exercise, Crystal, in our training programs, and I have groups of people around the room, and we put up posters, and I say, "Hey, list the 10 things that differentiate you from your competition." And then I take a marker and I say, "Okay, let's be honest and cross out those things that the other MSP in your market could say the same thing." And at the end, I mean, typically after we get through, of course, the sales rep is different and all those things. I think they realize that differentiation is so important, but it's not easy to do, and it's definitely worth the effort. So, Crystal, you've mentioned the 20 a few times, and I follow the awesome stuff you folks are doing. I think you're a juggernaut in the MSP space, but what is the 20 all about?
So the 20 is essentially a growth platform for MSPs and OEDs, but owners who are looking to scale faster, scale smarter with less chaos. So we give them the playbooks, the peer network, and the accountability structures that actually moves the needle for them. It's not theory, it's what's working in the market right now. It's what we use in our MSP that has helped us to grow an exponential nationwide footprint. So our members don't just learn, they level up. So they upgrade their operations, their teams, their margins, and their mindsets. And when they're ready for a bigger exit or a bigger future, then they're already built for it.
And I've seen through following you and the 20, the momentum, the positive momentum you folks are building. I think Tim's a icon and looks like an awesome dude, by the way, to lead an organization. Hey, I follow you on LinkedIn. Where should others follow you? And I highly recommend, I follow you on LinkedIn. I get a lot out of it, but where should they follow you?
I would absolutely say LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I love connecting with all of you on LinkedIn and growing my network there. If you're interested in the 20, then you can check it out at the20.com.
Hey, thanks so much for joining me today on the Smarketing Show. Congrats on all you're doing. And folks, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. There's a lot of gold nuggets in there. Thanks so much, Crystal.
Thank you, Rick.